FIDE Master John Curtis from Australia. G'day, and have I got a special tribute for you today. I've got Super Grandmaster Peter Svidler, who just recently competed in the Sochi World Cup in Russia, and Peter Svidler was eight times Russian champion. He won the Russian championship 8 times. And as we know, for many decades, the Russians were the leaders in chess on the planet. So it's no mean feat to win the Russian championship 8 times. Correct me if I'm wrong. Put a note in the file, but I think Mikhail Tal won the Russian championship 6 times. And one of the world champions, Bronstein, or one of those characters, they won it about 6 times too. But 8 times Russian champion, Peter Svidler. In 1991, he got his international master title. In 1994, he was granted his grandmaster title. Well, it was in 1994 he won the first of his 8 Russian championships. He won the Russian championship in 1994, 1995, 1997, 2003, 2008, 2011, 2013 and 2017. What an effort. And I've won 10 of my local state lightning chess champions, and I'm in the Hall of Fame. But my God, a little country like Australia, a Russian championship 8 times. Oh, what a player. He was World Cup champion in 2011. He played the candidates for the world title in 2013, 2014, 2016. So this guy has made his mark in world chess. He deserves a tribute video. Okay? Now the first game we're going to play is Peter's going to play white against Vladimir Burmakin. This was in the 2013 Russian Championship. And so that was his so in the 1994 Russian Championship. And we're going to show you the game. Okay, so as we know, Svidler is white. He plays e4. And we'll go into the the analysis is showing right. D4, D5, Svidler chooses knight D2. I played this line myself, actually. I was so surprised, but I'll tell you when it happens. Pawn takes pawn, knight takes pawn, right? So we're playing the Cro-Kann, the main line, okay? And then he plays knight to D2. I suppose it's because the opponent played knight to D2 that he now plays his next move. Sometimes in blitz, I'll play queen to E2, threatening knight checkmates. That's right, it's a little lightning chess trap for beginners. White's position's not too adversely affected for blitz chess, but isn't it nice if you can get a checkmate in so many moves against a good player? So I'd often play queen E2 here, and if then as I say, I'll play queen E2 here, and if they play the knight out here, well, you get a checkmate there. Right? Smothered checkmate's called. Anyway, we'll see what happens. He played knight there. And I'll tell you what, I've been playing this move in my blitz chess for years. But I thought it was actually bad. Honestly, I thought it was bad. But, well, it's not bad if black plays h6, you can play knight here, right? And then you can't take with the pawn because the queen will checkmate you. See, you've got to be careful of these little traps, haven't you, eh? All right, then. So, on knight to D2, you can play this move knight G5. See, he plays knight to F6 because he's a good player, this Vladimir Burmakin. He didn't get into the Russian Championship by winning his entry on in a cornflakes packet or a cereal packet? No, he didn't. So bishop d3. Okay, here we go again. Don't forget, now, if the pawn goes to h6, right? If the pawn goes to h6, the knight can still go in there. You know that, don't you? Because if pawn takes, the bishop will checkmate. That's right. Can you see that? I'll repeat that for you again. If black tries to chase the pawn or the knight away with pawn to h6, white's knight will come in here, and then if the pawn takes the knight, the bishop can checkmate the black king. Again, another version of the smothered mate. Because these two pawns, one will be here and one will be here, so the bishop will be able to slide in there with a checkmate when they both move. Okay? So you just got to watch that as a beginner. Watch out for those checkmates. So e6 is played, so he keeps the position, black keeps the position solid. Our good friend Mr. Vladimir Burmakin. Peter plays knight to f3, knight on 1 to f3, and he's just developing his pieces, preparing to castle or just see what takes place. One plan would be to play, say, if black did nothing, black was a beginner, one plan would be to play queen e2, and if black's doing nothing, well, knight takes pawn, king takes, and knight checks, and the queen takes e-pawn. And that's the end of the game. And I've actually had that game in lightning chess games, and I've won games in 8-10 moves doing that. Simple traps that players just sort of fall for. They don't fall for these traps in Russian championships. You've got to win a different way. Anyways, bishop d6 is played. What this fellow's doing is he knows that Grandmaster Svidler has got his knight extended over towards the king side, but he knows, right? He knows, Burmakin knows that there is no attack there at the moment, right? There's adequate defence to any possible attack at the moment. So what Burmakin's doing is he's saying, well, okay, while you're just moving your knight over there on g5, which doesn't threaten anything, I'll just keep my pawns intact, right, my king pawns, I'll keep them intact, keep them strong, and I'll get my pieces out, and I might be able to play e5, which is the freeing move. Because black could play e5 with no consequences, then black would have a wonderful game. Right? So he played bishop to d6, and now queen to e2 is played. Okay? Now the whole idea of that move is just prepare. He's not sure. He wants to see what's going to take place before he makes a decision on whether to castle queenside or kingside. Yes, in this position, knight takes pawn is a threat. That's a real threat, because if the king takes, the other knight would come out and give a check, and the queen would take the e-pawn, and basically the game would be all over. So that is actually a threat in this position. If it was white to move, white wins with knight takes f7. So, right, so what does black do? Now, because black examines all the things, well, hold on, he's allowed it. No, he hasn't. No, because you can't check. When he pushes the pawn on the knight, he says, go away. You can't take the pawn because you haven't got the knight follow-up check, because my pawn on h6 stops you. So go away, buddy. And so he does. He goes knight to e4. And as you can see in the position, white's got a perfect position. He's got all his minor pieces developed. And black has not. Black has still got that bishop on c8, right? That's the dreaded c8 bishop against the queen pawn openings and Cro-Kanns. And it can always be a problem. That's why many players try to get this bishop on c8. They try to get it out to f5 or g5, g4, or anything that they can do to get that bishop out before they play e6. But it's not easy on the grandmaster level to do these things. So knight takes knight, queen takes, and now he hits it, he biffs him. He says, hey, watch out for your queen. He says, Queen alert, Queen alert. No, Peter, Grandmaster Svidler does not give out the Queen alert. This is what he does. He goes, oh no, my pawn. No, he doesn't do the Eric Rosen either, the oh no, my pawn. No, this is the Russian championship. They're all very stern and serious about their chess there, and they follow the chess rules. They don't try to put their opponents off. That's just in Wild Park Blitz chess, right? We watched the Botez sisters doing that, and Gotham Chess was down the park the other day. He was playing a few patzes. Okay, so Queen H4 is played, and what he's really doing is he's saying, well, if you castle, I might be able to take the H-pawn. Bishop to D7 is played. Black saying, well, I'm not going to commit myself to castling queenside nor kingside. Okay, so what's played next? Bishop to F4. Okay, now you would say, well, in this position you would think, oh, bishop to F4, can't I play pawn to knight 4 and fork a bishop and a queen and win a piece? No, you can't. I'll tell you why. Because if you play pawn there, the bishop can take the pawn off, and you can't recapture with the pawn because you lose the rook with check. Okay? Now, what is white trying to, what's he trying to achieve here? Well, what he's trying to achieve is he's trying to achieve the control of the black squares. You see black squares on G5, D5, E5. That's what he's trying to control. So Queen C7 is played. He says, no, you can't have all the black squares. And so now he moves his bishop forwards one square. He says, well, I don't want to take your bishop off because I want to bolt down those black squares, and black central squares, they've got my name imprinted on them. I'm threatening bishop takes knight now. What are you going to do about that? Well, his opponent looks at the position. He says, well, hold on. If I play G5 now, he's thinking, if I play G5, the queen's going to move and maybe I can take this bishop. And if the knight takes the pawn, maybe I can take the bishop in the centre, pawn takes back, and then queen takes check and win a piece. So that's what he's thinking. Let's see what transpires. He plays a check. Okay, C3. And now he plays it. He plays G4. Now, you would think that after knight takes pawn, you might lose a piece after bishop takes bishop. And you'd be worried, where do I put my queen? Right, so you think, oh, maybe queen G3 is the right move. But and the only move, you probably think, oh, queen G3 is the only move on the board. But no, watch this. Knight takes pawn. He accepts the challenge. And now you think, oh, but now if bishop takes bishop and pawn takes bishop, queen takes pawn, check is great for black. That's what you'd think. So he takes the bishop. Now, do you take the bishop threatening the knight? What do? Well, watch what Peter Svidler does. All prepared, he just moves his knight back. Isn't that unbelievable? With all those complications there and everything, he just thinks logical. He says, oh no, my queenside pawns, I've got a great pawn structure, great kingside pawns. Black's got a weakened kingside. His queenside is open just a little bit. And he says, well, now if you move your bishop back, I'll just take the knight. And then you won't be able to castle. Well, boys and girls. So he's got 7 pawns, his opponent's got 6. So there's a real challenge here. Okay, so our friend Burmakin, he takes the pawn on d4 and white recaptures with the queen on d4, threatening the knight. Pinning the knight against the castle. So the knight can't move because the queen takes rook check. Okay, rightio. I'm just going to interrupt this video for 1 second. 1 second. I had a bit of sound background there in the on the TV with the Olympic Games, so I just turned that off. Right, so castles, some white castles. Okay, so now if you can see the A pawns there for the taking, but it'd be pretty dangerous because white's got queen to B4 check. If you take the A pawn, so this is the only loose pawn. Then if you take that pawn, they'll allow queen checks here, and the black king's not well placed. And after queen takes pawn, the castle would be threatened. So you'd have a busted king side and a busted queen side, and you'd have no shelter at all. So he doesn't want to take the pawn. So he plays rook on the A file to D8. And what does white play? Rook on the H file to E1. Okay, so again he's saying, well, yeah, you can have the A pawn, I'll just take the B pawn, and your king will be piggy in the middle. How do you like that? And he says, well, I don't want to go pinching A pawns. I saw what happened to Bobby Fischer, he said. So anyway, so he plays bishop to C8 and he's attacking the queen. He says, well, I'm still on the A pawn. What are you going to do about that? And so he moves his queen to H4. He says, well, take the A pawn if you want to, if you're that brave. But there could be consequences. And then black looks at it and he says, well, how long does it take me to get my pieces out, right? And yes, it takes quite a while. It takes quite a while. It's not easy to get the pieces out after queen takes the A2 square. So our friend Burmakin, he just declines and he plays rook to G8. So rook on the H file to G8. And he says, well, I'll threaten your pawn. And then bang, rook E5 comes in. He says, well, I'm going to go for it. Now, this is really interesting. If you take the pawn, there is a strange variation there that's coming up. And that's knight D4 could be pretty damn frightening, threatening knight to F5 check. Right? So, in other words, if you take this pawn, after knight here, knight checks. You couldn't take with the pawn, and the knight would fall. The knight would fall. So you taking this pawn here. After all, the bishop can go back if he really needs to, or the king could just go forwards. So forwards, and you might run out of checks or whatever, right? So it doesn't look very comfortable taking that A pawn. So black says, well, no, I don't like that idea of taking the A pawn. Tell you what I'll do. I'll threaten the A pawn, but at the same time, I'll just take your castle off. We'll change castles and we'll go to an endgame because at this stage I've got 6 pawns and you've got 6 pawns. And maybe I'll put my hand up and say, would you like a draw, please, Mr. Svidler? And he says, no, I want to win the first of my 8 Russian championships today. Now, he didn't know that he was going to win 7 more. Anyway, so queen takes. Now, the beautiful thing about this move is there's the A pawn's still on. You're still attacking the A pawn. And we'll see what happens. There's a big check there. Look at that. He gets that queen B4 check. He likes to displace that king. So he says, oh, no, I don't like that. I've got to cut you off black squares from the very beginning of the game. What you've done to me, Mr. Svidler, is you've attacked me on the black squares. I'm not going to have any more of that nonsense. So Peter goes over here. This time, Peter wants to go in here with a check, right? Now, that's, again, the A pawn's off out of bounds. You can't touch the A pawn because of the check. So what does he do? He moves his queen back and says, well, no, I don't like that check. And then try to find the next move for white in this position. You think that, well, black's finally equalised. Black's finally threatening to play rook, takes G2, Black's threatening rook to g5. Black's got lots of moves, but rook takes g2 is the massive threat. Now, what move would you play as white in this position? I'm going to give you 10 seconds to think about it. Take your time. No rush. There's white to play. What would you play? Would you play knight hits queen or... Well, I'll show you what he played. I'll tell you what, I don't think I would have found this move. Maybe in a tournament game I would. I certainly wouldn't have found it in a speed blitz game. He plays bishop hits queen. That's right. You think, oh, hold on, oh, no, I could take that bishop with my queen. Oh, no, you can't. If you take that bishop with your queen, the white queen will go check here and checkmate down the back. Okay? Similarly, if you take with the knight, the white knight will go in here, attack your queen, and threaten queen takes pawn check down the back. So you'll be skewered all over the place. Isn't that amazing? So the bishop can be taken two different ways, and yet it can't be taken at all. So what does he do? Well, he moves his queen away. Of course he does. So he still stops this queen d6 check, and now he's threatening probably to take the bishop or to take the g-pawn. So what does white do? Well, he plays knight there, doesn't he? Isn't that a beautiful move? Look at the way the pieces complement each other. The white pieces are complementing each other beautifully. And not only, look at the pawn structure. See these beautiful pawns here, still on their original squares. They haven't moved. And here, apart from the move c3, these pawns are on their original squares. Whereas black's position is like sort of a bit of all over the place. And he's got three pawn sets. He's got his h-pawn all by itself. He's got these two pawns here. And he's got, well, those three pawns there. But there seems to be a few holes. But this knight and bishop are combining beautifully. Well, at least the knight and queen anyway. So he played rook to d8. He says, well, we can't take any more of those fancy Svidler manoeuvres. I'm going to just change off the pieces and get a draw. And so he takes it off, and the queen takes back. And what does he do? He pinches a pawn and leaves the bishop there. And he says, well, hold on. Now I've got 6 pawns and you've only got 4. Take the bishop if you want to, but I'm going to take the knight. So he takes the bishop, he gives him a check, attacking the knight, and the knight goes back. You think, oh, all right, gotcha. No, you haven't. The knight pins. There's no way to defend the knight twice. So the king moves up forwards. He says, oh, no, I've got 5 pawns, you've got 6. Now take the rotten knight off, and he does. And he's threatening discovered check. He's threatening knight to e4 check wins. So the black king moves over to c6. He says, well, I've had enough of that. I'm going to try to find some shelter on the queen side. Maybe play king c7. And maybe I can, if I'm lucky, I can get king c7 and king to b8 and hide in the corner. And then my queen, maybe I can get a draw somehow with an active play with queen here and queen checks here and gobble up a few pawns, okay? So he's dreaming, he's playing Peter Svidler. So queen e4 check, bang, straight in the guts. He says, no rest for the wicked. He moves over to b6. He says, all right, well, if I can't go and get shelter through c7, what I might do is I might play a6 and get shelter that way and move my king back into the bolt hole. So what happens? He plays queen, simple move, queen up, forwards. Okay? And when we look at this position, white's just simply got a pass pawn there. And the bishop is like a pawn. It can't move. It's blocked by its own pawns. So it's a technical win. Queen to d6. This is the move I showed you a little bit earlier. Threatening a check and take a pawn with check and trying to get some complications. But you know what? The whole idea is killed, squashed straight away after knight there. Now after queen checks, the king moves up and there's no more checks after a while. But you can't take the b pawn because the queen takes c5 check, right? He's got 2 on this, so you can't go pinching pawns because of that attack. So he moves his queen there, and then Svidler says, well, I'll change queens, but on my terms, right? Okay, now if the king moves up here, right, you can play queen takes queen, and then knight checks wins the bishop, which means that there's only one square. You've got to play queen here, or you've got to play king here, okay? But if the king goes over here, right, then queen takes pawn check wins again, and then take the queen off. And there's just far too many pawns. So what does he do? What does black do? Well, he takes the queen, and the knight takes, okay? And he says, all right, I'll move my bishop up. And you know what white says? He says, well, I don't care about that. I'm going for a queen. And now you look at the position, you say, oh, hold on. He could have even taken the pawn here. He could have taken the pawn. And he would have had 6 pawns against 4. But no, he said, I can't see how you can stop this queen because all your pawns are blocking your bishop. Right, so he made king there. He said, oh, I'll come over and stop it with the king. He said, no, you can't. He pushed the pawn. And that was the end of the game. H5. And our friend Vladimir Burmakin resigned. And Peter Svidler went on to win the 1994 Russian Championship. I have one more game for you here. This is from the... this is from the Russian Championship as well. This is round 2 of the Russian Championship. Right, this is round 2 of the Russian Championship. Okay. And now what I'm going to do is I'll just go back, I'll clear this board, reset. No, I'll just get a new board. Analysis board, here we go. Now this is played between Valerij Popov, who is white, in round 2 of the Russian Championship, and it's the English Anglo-Indian defence. It's the King's Indian, with a King's Indian formation. We know what the King's Indian formation is. Anyway, knight f3 is played, and this time our friend is black. So the great Peter Svidler is black on this occasion. His opponent played knight f6. White played c4, e6, knight c3, d5. The black strikes out and he wants the centre. He says, well, I'm going to fight you for the centre. Very classical. This is real Russian chess. I used to play through all the Russian, each games. I used to get copies of all the booklets when I was younger and get all the booklets from all the Soviet championships and the Russian championships and the like. And a lot of them are these d4, d5 setups with the same pawn configuration. White played queen to a4 check. Okay. And now bishop d7 was played. Okay. I like c6. I think what he's trying to do is lock in the black bishop. Anyway, white played queen to b3. But it doesn't look right. Something doesn't look quite right about it. And now Black played d takes c4. Challenging white to go down there and pinch the b pawn. But if you take that pawn down here, okay, your pawn structure is better, but after knight c6, your queen is really badly placed, and rook b8 and knight to b4 is going to be played. It's a real worry. So d takes c4, he simply recaptures queen takes c4. Very, very wise, Mr. Popov. Anyway, black plays a6. He says, all right then. Well, if I can't get you that way, what I'm going to do is I'll try to get you another way. I'm going to try to expand my queen side and get rapid development because you brought out your queen early. Okay, so white played d4. And if anything, if you were one of my students was playing chess and they had this position as white, I'd say no, you look like you're doing everything correct. You got a good structure, and if anything, white looks like he wants to set up a centre. Of course, this is the hypermodern game here. You know, I was talking the other day about Tarrasch and Nimzovich and how they set up hypermodern chess. The idea is you let white try to gain a centre, but you undermine them from the side of the board, create a sort of a fire somewhere else, putting the fire out over there on the queen side, and the king side, or the centre, or the king side falls apart, or whatever it is. Anyway, we'll see what happens. d4, so he stakes his claim in the centre. Now b5, okay? He says, right, I'm attacking the queen that came out early. Where are you going to go? He says, well, I'll go queen b3, queen to d3, okay? And that's a good move because from there I can prepare to play e4, okay? Only trouble is it does block this bishop from coming out. The queen's on the bishop's line, so they sort of bump into each other a little bit. But you can also argue that that's a badly placed bishop on d7. Anyway, white says, well, right, I'm going to play bishop f4. I'm going to get my pieces out, right? Oh, firstly, queen to d3, bishop to g7. Have I mucked this up, have I? Knight to f3. I'm going to go back. I'm going to do this again for you. Hold on. What have I done wrong? Knight to f3, c4, g6. Oh, g6. Not e6. Not e6, you duffer. Put that back. Right, so it's knight to f3, knight to f6, c4, g6. So I did say when I was introducing this game, it was an Anglo-Indian defence with a King's Indian formation. Well, that's a King's Indian formation, right? Fianchetto, black fianchetto, bishop on the long diagonal down here. g6, knight to c3, d5. So my apologies there. Queen to a4 check. Okay. Here comes this queen to a4 check. And bishop to d7. Queen to b3, not d3. Queen to b3. That's better. Now d takes c4. Again, same principle applies. If queen takes b7, knight c6 is dangerous. So he takes the c4 pawn. a6 is played. d4 is played. b5 is played. Expanding on the queen side. Queen to d3 now is played. Bishop g7 is played, right? And so now that makes more sense, doesn't it? But still, we do have that conundrum. White wants to play e4 and control the centre, and the bishop still doesn't change the fact that the bishop can't go here because the queen's blocking it. So this queen coming out early, it's almost like Peter Svidler is his whole game is reactionary chess. He's reacting. All his moves are reacting to what white does, right? And white bringing that queen out. It's like every move he makes is been calculated to counter what white's doing. And I remember I have referred quite a few times in my videos and on my Twitch live TV channel. I referred you to the game on the Melbourne Chess Club YouTube channel, analysed by International Master Robert Jamieson. How not to attack in chess. It's really important. If you really want to be a good player or just a strong player, you've got to watch this video, How Not to Attack in Chess. And the idea behind it, right? The idea is simple. And I'm pointing it out to you here too. This is exactly the same thing that International Master Robert Jamieson was talking about in How Not to Attack in Chess. And it's exactly what this guy, Peter Svidler, is doing and the way he's playing this position. So bishop g7, bishop to f4, and black castles. So he completes his development. Now, when we look at the two positions, we can see that the pawns are level, the pieces are level. Black's expanded a bit on the queen side. The position looks a bit dicky. Oh, yeah, okay. But white hasn't castled at all. And he can't castle queen side because he's got holes all over the place. And the pawns are already coming towards him. So he needs to castle king side. Anyway, he's neglecting his castling. He's playing rook c1. He's a good player. But look at this move. c5, he says, no, I'm not going to give you any rest, buddy. No rest for the wicket. I'm just going to open it up. He says, I'll give it to you. And so the guy says, well, right, thank you very much. And he takes the pawn off. And why does he give it to him? He gives it to him for active play because he says, well, you haven't castled, so I'm going to play b4. I'm going to dislodge. I'm going to dislodge your knight now. That's the next part of my game. I'm dislodging your knight. And where's the knight go? Where does the knight go? The knight goes up here. Black can get a good game with bishop to b5, or he could just develop a piece or something. But the point is, white hasn't castled. Anyway, he moves his knight here. And I think this could be fatal because nearly all his pieces are on the back rank. You won't catch Peter Svidler doing that. Right? He wants to get his pieces mobile, even if it's at the cost of a pawn. So he does. He plays knight c6, and he says, well, surely I've got adequate compensation now for in the form of development for my pawn sacrifice. And white says, well, I don't care you got that. I want to just change pieces off and win with the extra pawn. So in other words, if you take the knight, well, the queen can take, and it's a different kind of game, but still looks terrible for white. But Peter Svidler just plays queen a5. He's just threatening the a pawn. In the last game, we saw a queen on a5, didn't we? It never took the pawn, did it? It never took the a pawn. Anyway, the knight goes and attacks the queen. He says, hey, take the a pawn. Well, he didn't take the a pawn. He went here. And why didn't he take the pawn? Do you know why he didn't take the pawn? Have a look. Well, if he takes the pawn, rook to c1 almost traps his queen. Almost. No, it traps his queen. Okay, so he can't take the pawn because he's got his queen trapped. So he plays queen here. He says, oh, I'll just come a little bit closer. just a little bit closer. And white says, well, it's about time I got a few pieces out, so I've neglected my development. So he plays e4. And so black redirects his bishop onto the knight. So he says, now I can take the A pawn, because if you hit me with the queen, with the rook, I could take your knight, right? So now he's threatening queen takes the A pawn. So white plays queen to c2. But he's not interested in the pawn. He just puts his rook on d8, rook on the f file to d8. Now you can look at the activity in the black position. No wonder this Peter Svidler, this great Peter Svidler, won 8 Russian championships. No wonder he's played in the candidates for the world title so many times, right? No wonder he's got the medal, the Russian medal for sport. Okay, here we go. So he plays bishop to g3. That's right. He's being attacked all over the place. He plays bishop to g3. Well, you know what this guy says? He says, well, I'm going to play knight to g4. Knight to g4. Okay. Is it knight to g4? He says, you're threatening my A pawn. I'm going to protect it. I'm going to go back and protect it. You don't want to take it, I'll protect it. Right? And he says, well, one of my pieces isn't active enough. Perhaps if I move my bishop over to h6 and threaten your castle, you might get a bit worried. Okay? And he says, well, yeah, I am getting a bit worried, sir, so I'll move my rook up here to c2. And white plays knight to a5. In this position, it's all about the activity of the pieces. As you can see, the knight here, it's on e6, it's on f2, it's not on e3, sorry, it's on f2. The black bishop is covering that square. So I'm just going to give you an idea of the power of the black pieces. You can see he's launching attacks, right? Like lightning bolts all over the place. Anyway, white plays f4. Well, that does not look good, does it? Okay, doesn't look too good. Because we've got a new weakness here now. We've got a new weakness. And that's this e6 square here. Just there, e6, e3 square. All right? There's just too many holes on this side of the board. Anyway, black plays knight takes knight. And white recaptures with the pawn. And black plays bishop takes b3. And we knew that was always weak along that on that queen side, that pawn structure. And now with the threat of rook takes knight check, there's only one move for white. So he plays rook c1, trying to protect his knight. He wants to move his knight or be able to play bishop e7. Black simply played queen to d7 and said, well, hey, you can't stop check. It's a dirty big check. And you know what? Valerij Popov looked at the board and he said, this is ridiculous. I don't want to play chess anymore. And he shook Peter Svidler's hand or walked away in disgust or one of those things. And that was the end of the game. But that was only just a few moves, only 22 moves. So he beat Valerij Popov in the Russian Championship with 22 moves with the black pieces. Just by following that little maxim, how not to attack in chess, but to respond in kind to what your opponent's doing and to counter it each time and do that little bit of bracket creep and then successfully overwhelm your opponent. Well, I hope you enjoyed that today. if you enjoyed those 2 games from the great Peter Svidler, 8 times Russian champion, I'll repeat it again, 8 times Russian champion, 1994, 1995, 1997, 2003, 2008, 2011, 2013 and 2017. In actual fact, I think he was the under-18 world chess champion as well. So there you go. What a player. So I was very, very happy to present this to you today. Please thumbs up if you like the YouTube video and subscribe so you can get notification of more of my videos. And if you want to support my channel, please do so, because it really does help me put all this together and to be able to spend that quality time to give you the best chess experience I can give you, okay? And don't forget to catch me on Twitch TV Live, okay? So with that, I'm going to say goodbye and God bless your family.